This is absolutely terrifying as the Winnipeg Jets get rewarded for finishing top in the conference as they face the St. Louis Blues in the first round, who are the hottest team in the NHL. We're going to break down the major implications of this playoff matchup, how it's a nightmare matchup for both teams, and everything in between in this episode, so you're not going to want to miss it. Before we get into that, if you haven't subscribed yet, we're trying to reach our goal of 13,000 subscribers before the start of the playoffs, which is happening Saturday. So if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to go down and hit that subscribe button. We'll be giving you updates from all around the league, the Winnipeg Jets and the St. Louis Blues, and you're not going to want to miss any of the content. But with that, we got to hop straight into the series, where we do know the St. Louis Blues are set to take on the Winnipeg Jets, a nightmare matchup for both teams in the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Right now, the head-to-head matchup, we know the St. Louis Blues are 1-3 versus the Winnipeg Jets this team, and these are two teams that really don't want to face each other, or any other team want to face these two. Going into the playoffs, we know the St. Louis Blues have been one of the hottest teams in the NHL, having a 12-game home win streak happening, which was actually ended by the Winnipeg Jets, I believe. Jordan Binnington, 11 consecutive home wins. This team has been outstanding. What's your thoughts on the Winnipeg Jets just kind of being given this as just not a reward, but just a punishment for being the best team in the NHL?
What a punishment for being the best team in the entire NHL and winning the President's Trophy. And I just want to start by saying, I know that there's a lot of Jets fans who are subscribed to the channel, and most recently, a lot of Blues fans. So, guys, this is going to be a lot of fun this series. It's going to be absolutely electric. And like you mentioned, the Blues had that crazy win streak going on. And who was the team that ended it? It was the Winnipeg Jets, right? It seemed like St. Louis was unbeatable there for a couple weeks, and the Winnipeg Jets put a stop to it. And the Jets were the best team, despite dealing with a lot of injuries this year. Dylan Sandberg went out due to injury. Neil Pionk most recently, right? They've dealt with a lot of injuries to a lot of different players. Lowry, their captain, was out at times. Almost everybody missed some time this season, and you're having career years from guys like Gabe Vilardi and whatnot. And it was just a up and down season for the Jets, but they kept consistent. They won the most games in the NHL this year, and they had the most points. They won the President's Trophy. So who is their reward, right? In the first round is the St. Louis Blues, one of the hottest teams and one of the hottest goaltenders. I'm sure we're going to get into that as well in the entire league since the Four Nations face-off as well. So it is a nightmare scenario for both teams, but the perfect series as a fan from the outside looking in. It's going to be absolutely electric.
Because, I mean, listen, the biggest thing is looking at the scoring, St. Louis versus the Winnipeg Jets this year, the Blues had a lot of players really stick up and come into these games hot. Robert Thomas has been outstanding this year, 8 points versus the Winnipeg Jets in just 3 games. I mean, you can pause and read through on how good this team has been. The biggest thing right now with St. Louis is, listen, they have a couple injuries, but they have one of the hottest goaltenders in the NHL, not the hottest goaltender, because that's on the other side of the ice during the series. But listen, looking at Jordan Binnington in this series, we've seen how well he's played. 900 save percentage doesn't really paint the whole picture. 28 wins, I believe it's 22 losses, but he has been outstanding since the Four Nations break, winning Canada goal. Listen, I think this is the X Factor player. I know there's a lot happening. Parayko's coming back for St. Louis. We know there's a couple injuries throughout this lineup, but what's your thoughts on this team with Jordan Binnington? And do you think he's the guy that could maybe get this done for them?
Goaltending will make or break the series for both teams in this series. Jordan Binnington, the hottest goaltender in the league since the Four Nations face-off. Again, like you said, his overall stats for the season don't tell the whole story. He's been putting up almost 960s every single game. And I think that this is a huge styles clash in this series as well, because the Jets have the very potent offense, right? High octane offense. They can score almost at will. Their power play was clicking at unbelievable rates this season over the course of the season, right? We know they have that. They're one of the best teams in terms of offense from their defense as well. And when you look at the St. Louis Blues, ever since Jim Montgomery came in, it's a lot of attention to detail to, team defense, playing a good team defensive style, right? So it's a styles clash in that way. So I do believe this series is going to come down to goaltending. Again, and Jordan Binnington's been hot. His stats speak for themselves. Maybe not the whole season overall, like I said, but, since the Four Nations face-off. And when you look at Connor Hellebuyck, I think he could end up winning the Vezina this year. He was absolutely unbelievable. He won an insane amount of games this year, right? He was everything for this Winnipeg Jets team. But like we saw last year and like we've seen in the past, when it matters, I don't know if Connor Hellebuyck is the guy you want in your net. And I know that sounds insane, but we've seen Jordan Binnington be that guy when it matters. I can't say the same for a guy like Connor Hellebuyck. So I do with, the clashing of styles in this series, again, with the offense from the Winnipeg Jets and how good the defense has been for the St. Louis Blues and getting a guy like Colton Parayko back. Everything, honestly, in this series is going to come down to goaltending. If one goaltender is better than the other, you have your series winner right there.
And listen, just to look at the St. Louis side for a minute, this is a team that's been exploding since Jim Montgomery took over. We know key pieces Dylan Holloway, which I don't even understand why the Oilers let him walk for nothing. This team has been rolling on every level. We see key guys stepping up. Broberg has looked outstanding from once again coming from the Edmonton Oilers for a couple draft picks, which is terrible on their management side. But listen, looking at this team, they're going to either continue to ride the hot hand or fizzle out. And I'm starting to really lean on the hand of this team is legit. Listen, we've seen from the stats, they're facing off in the first round. We know that, yes, the series might not look the best when they faced each other so far this year, but a lot of these games are going to matter. And this is a team that's setting records going in. Jordan Binnington's been outstanding. As I said, the players scoring. But the biggest thing is, listen, looking at the matchup from the Jets, and yes, they've had a tiny bit of struggle. And by struggle, I mean 5 points in 4 games is still very good. But I'm wondering how this defense holds up versus the Jets team that has been red hot. I mean, Connor Hellebuyck has been outstanding. Looking at the scoring, is there any unsung hero within this group that you think is going to really step up? I mean, Cole Perfetti has the most points versus the St. Louis Blues this year, but is there anyone that you think needs to have a huge series versus them?
Well, Perfetti, I mean, probably the centerman. I think Mark Scheifele has to keep going. I mean, this is not a surprise or anybody that's going to come out of nowhere, but the centermen have to have a really good series in this series for the Winnipeg Jets. And I think Gabe Vilardi has had an insane season this year. Maybe he comes up big in these moments as well, right? So that's another guy I'm looking at. I think Adam Lowry is very underrated in terms of the casual fan and what NHL fans are looking at, right? Winnipeg Jets fans know what he can bring to the table. So he's going to be a huge factor in this series too. But like you're looking at, right? Low scoring against the St. Louis Blues. So I think that it's going to be a very interesting series. I could see the Winnipeg Jets pushing a lot, but I don't see the St. Louis Blues breaking too much in this series. Obviously, there's going to be goals either way, and I could see a couple blowouts for the Jets, but it's been low scoring, right? The St. Louis Blues have given them some problems, and I think Jim Montgomery has really brought this team together, and they're playing a defense first type of style, and obviously the goaltender's giving them an opportunity every night. So it's going to be crazy. I would say those are a couple guys to watch out for. Obviously the guys on the back end too. What's Neil Pionk going to do? Dylan Sandberg has been fantastic this season, so looking at guys like that, so it's going to be very interesting.
And listen, I'm going to kind of throw it back to you. This is a matchup that's going to be for the ages. Everyone's going to want to see these two teams play. Who do you have winning the series, and how many games do you think will go?
This is going to surprise people, but I've been paying attention to the Jets all season. I've been paying attention to the St. Louis Blues all season, right? And especially recently and what they've been able to do since Jim Montgomery was hired. And honestly, Mark, I'm curious to see your thoughts too, but I'm going to take the St. Louis Blues, and it's going to be in 7 games. I could see a couple blowouts in this series for the Winnipeg Jets, but I think at the end of the day, defense wins championships, and it comes down to the goaltending. And if I'm going to pick a goaltender in this series, it's going to be Jordan Binnington. He's showed me time and time again he can do it in the high pressure situations. I'm going to take the St. Louis Blues in 7 games.
And listen, looking at the series, I think it's going to 7 regardless. I think game 1's going to dictate this entire series. Whoever wins game 1 gets that momentum. If St. Louis continues, I think they have a strong chance. But listen, Connor Hellebuyck currently has more wins than the St. Louis Blues organization this year. 46 wins, I believe, looking at before recording. 44 for the St. Louis Blues. Listen, I love the Blues. I love every team in the NHL. We've been following the Blues on this channel for a while, but I have the Jets in 7. Listen, I can't get over the fact that the Blues knocked out my Canucks in the playoffs, so that's a little bit to look at, but this is a team that has the hottest and one of the best goaltenders of all time in a current season with Connor Hellebuyck. I think this is going to 7. As I said, this could change depending on how game 1 goes, but I really have the Winnipeg Jets winning this series. Listen, it's going to be one for the ages. You guys are going to want to watch it, even if you're not a fan of the St. Louis Blues or the Winnipeg Jets. If you're a Canucks fan, go wish for the downfall of one of these teams. Who really cares at that point? But that'd be it for this episode of Canucks, Hat Trick HQ. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to go down and leave a like, subscribe, share this with your friend. I'm in a blender, so if you enjoy this, go subscribe. But I've been your host, Mark Pye, with my co-host Darius, and take care.